Welcome to the Next Level Law Podcast, where we explore innovative strategies to grow and scale your law firm in today's competitive legal landscape. Joining you each week are veterans in the legal space and law firm growth experts Arash Eskandari and Richard Perillo, coming to you with over 18 years of combined experience, successfully transforming legal practices. Our hosts are passionate about helping law firm owners take their business to the next level. If you want to exponentially increase your client base, revenue, efficiency, and profitability, you're in the right place. Stick around as your hosts dive into actionable insights and proven methods tailored specifically to help your law firm ascend to new heights. Time to get down to business.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Next Level Law Podcast. I'm Richard Perillo, and with me as always is Arash Eskandari. We're joined today by David Craig, managing partner of Craig, Kelly & Faultless, based out of Indianapolis, Indiana. David's firm primarily focuses on trucking-related accidents, and we're excited to have him today on the pod. Today's podcast is sponsored by Vertical 10. Vertical 10 provides full-service digital marketing solutions exclusively for law firms coast to coast. Vertical 10 specializes in SEO, Facebook, and Google direct marketing. Visit vertical10.com for more information on how to scale your firm and gain new clients today. David, thank you for hopping on with us this afternoon.
That's great. Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate the opportunity.
Arash, good afternoon. Good to see you as always.
Good to see you, Rich.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. So before we get really into it, David, you have your own podcast, After the Crash. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So several years ago, I wrote a book called Semi-Truck Wrecks, a guide for victims and their families. And I got a lot of good response from that. But it didn't go into a lot of detail. I mean, obviously with a book, you're limited, but it was written for just ordinary folks. What I found over my career was that I had a lot of clients who didn't even know what questions to ask. And so, they just didn't know. They were uninformed. So we wrote the book, and then the podcast gave me an opportunity to kind of dive deeper into each little parts of what I couldn't cover all in the book. So I started about 3 years ago or so, and we interview folks that and it's geared towards ordinary people, and then we just talk to experts and people that have to do with truck wrecks, commercial motor vehicle wrecks, big truck cases. And we interview all different types of people that I interact with on a daily basis.
Yep, no, outstanding. And you can find that podcast not only on your website, but also Apple, Spotify, everywhere. Anybody can look up podcasts.
Yeah, and the video version's on YouTube.
Okay, perfect. So with your firm specializing in trucking accidents, and I'm just gonna kind of go off on the side here. My wife's biggest fear in life is getting hit by a truck on the road. Been with her for 20 years, and if we're driving on 275 or I-4 and there's a semi, even if it's driving safely, speed limit, right lane, she's never been in a trucking accident, but that is hands down her biggest fear. Can you talk a little bit about what drivers should be, on the lookout for, and some signs to kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of stay ahead of, what could be possibly a dangerous situation. If they're on an interstate and there's, a truck, multiple semis, that they need to be cautious about.
Yeah, I tell you what, I mean, it's a normal fear. I mean, those things are 40 tons of steel. So, it's not your ordinary thing right next to you. And what's really scary is when you're in the rain or snow. This time of year, what I find extraordinarily scary, having done this for over 38 years, is construction zones in big semis. Construction zone, every year I get hired by a family who loses a loved one in a construction zone when they're hit by a semi. I just talked to a family last Saturday that lost a loved one. And construction zones, I mean, we need the work done. We need the roads improved, but they're extraordinarily dangerous. And there's a high rate of accidents that involve semis or big trucks in those. So to your point, what should you look out for? I mean, I do this for a living. And so when I go I drive to Atlanta for business on a pretty regular basis. And when I'm driving through construction zones, I do things differently than I did before I became a personal injury lawyer. I space myself. I don't get between two semis. So if I'm coming up on a construction zone and I see that most of the wrecks happen in the very beginning when traffic gets narrow, and that's when it starts backing up. And if a semi driver is distracted, asleep, bad brakes, that's when they have wrecks. And so I try not to be the back one in line in a construction zone. I try to time it so I'm up in front, and I get in front and make sure there's not a semi behind me, and then I leave room in front of me, and then I'm always looking for an out. What happens if I look in my mirror and somebody's barreling down on me and they can't stop? Where am I going to go? And I usually try to get on the side that's not with a barricade. Even if I have to go off the road, I'm going to live. But if 40 tons of steel hits me and I'm stopped, I'm probably not going to live. So I look for those type of things. So I'm not overly scared of semis like your wife.
Well, terrified, yeah.
But the reality is, I understand that. If you've ever seen these and you've seen the devastation that these wrecks cause, then you certainly would be worried and scared. The truth is that most semi drivers are great professional, courteous drivers. They're actually good. I mean, they're professional. They go specific training. They care about getting home, doing their job, going home to their families. But the bad ones are really bad. And I'm finding more bad ones out there today than ever in my career.
So David,
Yeah.
how many of these accidents typically occur per year these days?
It depends on the state, depends on the climate. There's a great site, Safer Trucking Institute, that's out of Washington, D.C. They keep a lot of the stats. You can look at the national sites, and it varies. But again, statistically, most wrecks between a semi and a car are caused by a car. But the problem is that when a semi does cause a wreck, they immediately call dispatch. They immediately call their team, and their team is right there on the spot. And I've had claims people, adjusters, and even defense attorneys at the site of a wreck before my family has even been removed from the vehicles in a catastrophic case or a death case. So the challenge is, most of them are really good, but the bad ones are bad. And the bad ones have the resources to put teams to work immediately following the wreck, where ordinary people are just worried about their own lives. They're worried about their family. They're not thinking about lawsuits or what we should do to preserve evidence, any of those type of things.
I see. Yeah, these kind of cases and accidents, they're catastrophic pretty much most of the time. When I was at a previous firm that I worked at years ago, this firm, we mostly were doing nursing home abuse cases, but I think one of the biggest cases we had was a trucking accident. I remember she was 21 years old, unfortunately, and she passed, but it was a $65 million verdict. So it was, yeah, I guess I just wouldn't think there's too many of them, but I guess, it's enough.
There's a lot more than you think. And,
Yeah,
and the reality is, the one that you talked about had a big verdict. It's not unusual for these cases to be worth in the tens of millions. The challenge, though, is sometimes the really bad companies are running bad equipment and they're carrying minimum insurance. And the minimum insurance hasn't changed in decades, and it's $750,000 per truck, per accident. And most trucking companies will carry $1 million, but $750,000 to $1 million, and that's inadequate if you're paralyzed, if you're catastrophic injury, if somebody lose a loved one who supports your family. So for every case that you're talking about where you see a big verdict, there are so many cases where clients go undercompensated because the bad company just doesn't have enough insurance.
So
yeah, that makes sense.
What would be, a client's recourse? Let's say it's a $750,000 policy. the jury awards them into the seven figures. Does the client have any recourse to try to recover those additional damages, or is it one of those things where the policy 750, you'll get that, and the other 2 million, 10 million, whatever the number is, you're out of luck? Or is there steps that can be taken that will help that client get the recovery that they genuinely deserve?
So the first thing we do when we're hiring a case like this is we look and see if it's a really bad company and they got $750,000 worth of coverage. First of all, is there anyone else responsible? So sometimes it could be a shipper. The merchandise could fall off of the truck, cause the truck to stop, cause the truck to wreck. Is it a construction zone? I talked about construction zones. Is there adequate warnings? Is there proper signage? So you have to look at all the different angles and look at all the different approaches, and then look at the different coverages that are on that trailer, the tractor, the commercial motor carrier, who there's the shipper. All those type of things are things that an experienced truck wreck lawyer is going to look at. Let's say worst case scenario that you look at all those things and there isn't any additional coverage. There's only 750,000. I mean, I've actually put trucking companies out of business. The problem is that the bad trucking companies, if they can only carry 750, they probably don't have a lot of assets. They're probably highly leveraged. Their equipment's probably owned by the bank, not themselves. And so from a practical standpoint, you may very well not be able to collect anything from any of those people. And that's why I advocate, as well as a lot of other folks, that, guys, let's raise the limit. The limit's been the same for decades. Isn't it time cost of medical care, all those type of things have gone up, skyrocketed. So why not provide insurance for, again, it may be a small percentage of the truckers that cause wrecks, but those that do should pay for the harm that they cause.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's kind of, no pun intended, let's switch gears a little bit.
Sure.
And we'd like to hear a little bit about your story, how you, what was your motivation for entering the legal field, and if you could talk a little bit about how you got into the truck accident arena versus just all sorts of MVA or premises liability, because again we take a look at your site, your expertise. So how did you kind of transition to that? But if we could start and talk a little bit about your motivations for becoming an attorney, and then that growth that you had to where you're at now.
Sure. When I was a kid, one of my neighbors was a very prominent attorney. His son was somebody I went to school with. I always looked up to him. I always thought everybody in the community looked up to him. I mean, he made a difference. He made a positive difference in people's lives. He was the kind of the go-to person for advice. What do you do? He was very active politically as well. And so he was just one of those bigger than life people. And so as a kid, growing up, I looked up to that. And I thought, man, I would really like to do that. I would like to make a difference. I would like to be somebody that people looked up to, and somebody that could have a positive effect on people. So that was kind of what drove me into law. When I first started law, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't really think I would be a personal injury lawyer. I did business litigation. I did corporate litigation. The better I got at it, I liked litigation. It was competitive. I like competition. The more I got at it, the more I realized that the bad guys could afford me better than the good guys. And the bigger the problem was, the more apt I was to get hired. And so I really started not liking what I was doing. I had a high profile case that made the Indianapolis Business Journal. And I remember talking to my son, who was really little, who's funny now is one of my partners, is one of the attorneys here. As my daughter's an attorney here as well. But I remember looking at him and I was bragging. I was like, oh, look, my name's in the newspaper. David Craig has no comment. I mean, that was it. And he was like, well, which side are you on? And then I was like, oh, how do you tell a little kid that you're on the bad guy side? I mean, everybody's entitled to representation, but but I don't have to be that guy. I respect everybody's job. I respect people being on both sides, but personally, I don't have to be the person that's on that side. So I shifted. I started doing still litigation, but kind of gradually went into personal injury. And I was fortunate right off the bat to get a truck case where a dump truck ran off the road, plowed through a parking lot, plowed through a bunch of parked cars, and hit my client, dumped the pea gravel and buried my client. And that was an early on case. And I didn't know anything about it. And I was scared to death. And so what I did was what most of us do, is I started studying and learning everything I could learn about truck cases. And so I didn't have, back then, there wasn't as many, there weren't podcasts, there wasn't the internet, there wasn't all these places to look. So you got books, you got iClefs, you got seminar materials. And I remember just reading and studying everything I could learn. And then I started asking people. I mean, I think one of the key things to be successful is that, I'm not that smart, but I know how to find smart folks. And so I would go find people who knew stuff that I didn't know, and I learned it. And then I continued to go down that path. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it because I was making it. It was a big case. It was a client who really needed me, and so I enjoyed trial work, litigation, and so I learned to be a trial lawyer first, and then I learned trucking on top of that. And I think it was a nice transition. Litigation is litigation, but then you can learn the trucking area if you're willing to spend the time and effort and energy. And as you guys know, I mean, at Vertical 10, niching makes it a little bit easier to market. And so, as a logical thing as I grew, is to say, okay, what areas do I really love doing? What areas am I good at? And why not niche further for marketing purposes?
So David, how different is a trucking case compared to just like a standard MVA case?
There's a big difference. I mean, it's the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations, CDL manual, industry standards. The experts are different. The equipment's different. So, the rules are different. Some of the state statutes are similar. But the great thing about Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations and trucking is it's pretty similar from state to state. There are nuances, there are differences, but it's regulated by the federal law. So, but it's completely different than car crashes. And it takes a lot of time and effort and energy. I'm board certified in truck accident law. Last time I checked, there's less than 100 of us that have actually gone through the vetting process. It's ABA approved to be board certified. But my other partner, Scott Follis, is also board certified. And so it takes a lot of time and energy to kind of learn that. Quite frankly, it's not rocket science. I mean, you can learn it. You got to spend the time and effort and energy. And then you have to be willing to listen. And then I think, to be successful, you have to have the knowledge, which is the knowledge of the law and the industry standards. And then you have to have the experience. I'm a better truck lawyer today than I was 38 years ago, 35 years ago. And then I think you have to have the resources. I mean, these trucking companies can hire the best lawyers. They can hire the best experts. And so you have to be a law firm that has the resources, the money that you can put out and invest in these cases on the front end, because they're very expensive cases. You got to hire the experts. I had an Iowa case here recently that I did focus groups in 3 different locations before I ever even filed a lawsuit, just to decide which is the best place to file a lawsuit. Well, small law firms, when you just start, you probably don't have the money to do a focus group in Atlanta, Georgia, and 2 different ones in Iowa. But if you've been doing this for a while, you realize where you file it makes a difference. And so you have to have the resources as well as the experience and knowledge.
Would you say that's the biggest challenge? And we have a lot of individuals listening that are, either in law school or thinking about, becoming an attorney, not exactly sure, in addition to, just, regular, average, everyday folk and other attorneys. But what would you say would be the biggest challenge that you faced in starting your firm? And then, and I know you said, you just started right off the bat, you got the dump truck case, but what would you say would be like the biggest challenge that you were able to overcome, or challenges that you were able to overcome on this journey in your career?
Yeah, I've been very fortunate. I mean, I got a great group of people that I surround myself with. And I think that's probably the key to get, no matter whether we were going through a bad, the economy was bad, whether we went with COVID. I mean, we've always grown. I think it's a mindset. It's just, okay, hey, look, here's the obstacles that are thrown in front of me. These insurance companies are difficult to deal with. This lawyer's difficult to deal with. Economy's bad. We have, health issues. I mean, I think that from my standpoint, they've just been challenges. I wouldn't look at them as bad. I think it's an exciting time. If I was a young lawyer, I would be just as excited. I mean, you can work with companies like yours or other SEO, marketing, digital. I mean, it's so much easier, I think, today if you're willing to stay with them for the long haul, invest, team up with somebody, stay with them, give them an opportunity to do their job, and you can do marketing so much different than what it used to be. It used to be a county seat. Every county had a dominant law firm, and if you weren't in that dominant law firm, you're out of luck. Then Bait came along. We were able to do TV advertising, and you had the phone books, and it was tough. But I would tell young lawyers out there are parts of the community that are underserved. I was talking to an attorney yesterday, and they can't get lawyers out in some of the rural counties throughout our country. There's opportunities everywhere, but you've got to understand what it is you want. And then you have to team up with people like Vertical 10 or some of these other companies. You got to team up with them to help you get there. Don't pretend you know how to do something you don't. Law school does a great job of teaching you how to be a lawyer, but it doesn't teach you how to be a business person. Now, I love business. I was at an undergraduate degree in business, so I love that part of it. To me, winning at business is just like winning at case. So it's intellectually challenging for me, and I love it. But I think it's a great time to be a lawyer. I think niching helps, or finding a community in which you can stand out, where there's not whatever area it is you want to go into. There's not a ton of competition. But I think law school is so often they graduate and they just want to go to Indianapolis or Chicago or Atlanta or wherever, rather than looking and saying, well, what would I really like to do? What would make me happy? What would make me? Because if I'm happy, if I'm enjoying it, odds are I'm going to be successful. There's never been a day that as a truck wreck lawyer, that I've had trouble getting out of bed to come to work. I mean, what I do, I love. I'm passionate about it. And if you find that, I don't care what kind of law it is, if you find it, then you can be successful.
Yeah, I think you make a great point. That's one of the issues we've seen with a lot of firms, especially just smaller ones, is they just don't commit to the marketing efforts. They'll stay with us for a month, and then they'll just, even if we get them a good case, they'll still leave, which we never understood. But you seem to understand how it works. You understand that it's a time commitment, it's a money commitment, and you got to stick with it for it to really start working. So
there's no magic bullet. I mean,
exactly.
it's a long-term situation, and you've got to go into that. And you spend 3 years going to law school, learning the law, and that just gives you the basic understanding to get out. And yet you expect somebody to come in and do your SEO and get you, top page results, number one, in 3 months. Well, that's not going to happen. You've got to invest time, money. Now, the great thing about it is, I think it's a team. I think whoever you're working with is a team, and you have to have open communication. You got to talk with each other, and then you've got to stick with each other, ups and downs. I mean, I don't see too many law firms when marketing goes great and they're doing great, and there's like, oh, here, let me just start paying you a whole bunch more money. They say, oh, no, wait, we got a contract. I'm going to pay you the same amount of money that I agreed to pay you. But when things go bad, they don't want to pay you,
Exactly. Yeah.
And so we've built a very successful firm. I have an office in St. Louis, Missouri. I have offices throughout Indiana. I have lawyers licensed in Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, Illinois, Missouri, Tennessee, Iowa. And we do a lot of trucking, and we do some great cases, but it didn't happen overnight. I mean, it took a long time, and we had to understand what we're going to do. And then we had to work with people that we trusted, and we had to give them the opportunity to do their job and not think we know it all. Lawyers are really good. Law school does a good job of making us feel really special and knowledgeable. But the truth is, we don't know your jobs. I don't know how to do SEO. I don't know how to, I mean, I know how to work with people who do. But I think you're absolutely right. People are very impatient and they want quick results, immediate. And you can do pay-per-clicks, maybe get something quick. But the reality is, I would much rather have something for the long haul that's going to take care of me and my family for years to come.
So is that the majority of your efforts and pretty much all your marketing efforts is mostly going towards SEO right now?
Excuse me. Yeah, I don't do television. I believe that it's important to give people information and to provide valuable content. And that's a long game. So I have somebody in-house who writes my content because I want it to be my content. I talk to them. I say, here's what's important to me. Here's how I feel about this. Can you go write me an article? And then they write it for me and I change it. So I want somebody, I'm willing to pay somebody to write content that is my content that fits me. But then I want to do the podcast. I want to write a book. I wrote a book. I did a podcast. I put out content. All of it's geared towards what would a victim of a semi-truck wreck like to know, and might be helpful to them. And the majority of those folks may read that or hear that, and they may never hire me, and that's fine. But they're going to know more than they did before they read my piece of material, or before they read my book, before they saw my podcast. So I believe SEO is a long-term play that we have to develop over time, and that we have to provide helpful information. I like videos. I have a younger son, my youngest son. My daughter's a lawyer here, my son's a lawyer here, and then I have a third child who's a professional videographer, and he does videos for me. And so we do a lot of video content because I feel like I think that's helpful. As I know, I prefer watching it, video. And so we do a lot of video. So that's mainly what we're geared towards is, and I do digital, we do Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. Those are the main things that we're doing. We do paid ads in those. I don't do paid per click other than to protect my own name. If you click on our firm, but that's really kind of what. So I just kind of look at it from the angle of what do I like to, what's important to me as a consumer when I'm picking somebody, a doctor or a dentist, whatever, a restaurant. What's important to me, and then that's the things I focus on. So obviously Google reviews. I feel like I have to be on the map, the local maps. For me, I can tell the difference when I am and I'm not. So the local presence is very important. Local maps important. But it's taken a while to become authoritative, but that has paid off.
Yeah, that's the approach that all of our successful clients have. Is they have the long-term approach with SEO and short-term with Google or Facebook ads, and they're just kind of crushing it in all aspects.
Yeah.
Are you guys doing any other personal injury cases, or mostly just trucking?
No, we do. We actually do. As a great question. We actually do. My time nowadays is just pretty much trucking. But the reality is that I believe you have to be a trial lawyer. I try cases. I have always tried cases. And so to keep the insurance company and the trucking companies on their toes and to keep them honest, you've got to make sure you can try cases, and people have to know you can go get good results. Well, people don't start off trying truck cases. So for my son, my daughter, for my younger attorneys, we're 10 attorneys here. I want them to learn how to try cases. So I have to take other cases where it can be selective on them. We can pick good cases, but I want them trying cases, and they are trying cases. My son last year won the Young Trial Lawyer of the Year from the Indiana Trial Lawyers Association because of a case he won on appeal. And so he's tried cases, they're trying cases. And I think you learn how to try cases, you learn how to be successful, and then you take that skill set into the trucking world.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So you said you're licensed in multiple states. Kind of just a layman's question. How do you keep all of that straight? Because I mean, I know each state has its own regulations and guidelines. I mean, are you working 30 hours a day, 7 days a week? Even with, over 3 decades of experience?
Yeah, I mean, I work all the time. I don't know anybody that can outwork me. There's a lot of people smarter than me, and I have a lot of witnesses who will testify to that. But I don't know very many that can outwork me. But it's like, I mean, it's not work if you love it. I mean, I mean, if you look on my couch, my dog is on my couch. I mean, how hard can it be? How stressful can it be if your golden doodle's sitting there right behind you? I think that, quite frankly, I have lawyers licensed in each one of those states. I have people who I have experts that I can use in each one of those states. So I rely upon a lot of people. I had clients come in last Saturday. I want my clients, if they had a catastrophic injury or a wrongful death, I want them to know that I am hands-on, that I'm going to personally be involved, and I'm going to be out there at the truck inspections. I'm going to be there meeting with them. I have pictures of my clients on my desk, so that, I look down at my desk and I say, okay, why am I here today? Why am I working? I find people, they talk about work life, quality of work life. And I find that interesting because you could work 3 hours a day and have the rest of the day off, and you could be a miserable person if you hated those 3 hours. If you went to work and those 3 hours were the worst damn 3 hours you could ever imagine, it would have an impact on you when you go home. On the other hand, I can work 12 hours a day, but if I love it, then I have a great life. I go home, I'm happy. My wife, I met when she was 15 and I was 16. We've been together ever since. My kids follow my footsteps and my employees have been with me forever. But you make it so that what is it you love? What part of life do you love? And then it's not work if you enjoy doing it. So I would recommend young attorneys find that thing that they're passionate about. And then it doesn't matter how many hours you work. But
I was actually going to ask you about the golden doodle in the back, because I have one too, and they're the greatest dogs ever.
Oh, they are. It's hard. How can every now and then I'll raise my voice, like if I'm getting in a debate with somebody, another attorney, and she'll come over and put her head right on my knee, my leg. It's like you start petting her. It's like, how can it be that bad? I bring her in to work every day. We have two other golden doodles down the hall right now. There's a basset hound upstairs. I don't care if people bring their dogs to my office. I don't care if people bring their kids to my office. We're very informal. I tell my clients, I'm probably not going to be dressed up most of the time. Maybe dogs and kids in my office, but you know what? I care. I'm very passionate about what I do. And I think that's the key to success, is really being compassionate. If you're going to be a personal injury lawyer, care about these people. Don't chase the money. I mean, the money's going to come if you do the right thing and you work hard and you care. And it's the same way with the marketing, the digital marketing. Don't hope for the quick fix. Invest it for the right reason, because you want these kind of cases. You want to work them. You want to take care of these people, and then team up with somebody like Vertical 10 that you can trust, that'll do a good job for you.
Absolutely. And Arash, you and I were talking, I think it was yesterday or the day before, where we've had some firms where they're open about chasing the money and they are struggling and miserable. And Arash, we were just talking about that, yesterday or the day before. So it's funny because, we interview attorneys every week and we have guests, every week, and the highly successful ones like David and like some of the other, the other folks we've talked to, it all comes back to the same thing. The money will be there. Don't chase the money. Do what's right for your client, and let the chips fall where they may. And David, I really appreciate you saying that, and I hope people are listening, because this is a theme that we're just seeing recurring from the highly successful attorneys that we've had guests for us.
Well, I hope people listen as well, and I appreciate the opportunity to be on the podcast, and I do think that working with the right people is critical, and I think, I'm sure you guys would rather work with people who are invested for the long haul than you are the people who are just quick, like, give me a quick fix. That's just, I mean, it's not, it's a lot more enjoyable to have a relationship with people and work together to be successful.
Yeah, I hope there's attorneys listening and realize that like the roadmap that you've paved, that's the roadmap to success. Passionate about what you're doing. Have a long-term mindset, not be short-sighted, and care about your clients and obviously everything else that you have going in your life. You've built a very successful business and life, and you're reaping the benefits of it. Obviously, you have your dog in the background, which is awesome. Makes the work day just so much better. So I can relate to that. So yeah, that's fantastic.
And when you think about it, my son's here, my daughter's here, my wife runs my practice. I've got 50 employees. It's just my grandkids come in. It really is. And I think that's what you got to look for is, again, I've made money and I've not made money, but I've been happy. Now I like making money better. But the reality is if your definition of happiness and success is the money, you got problems, because that you don't have control over all the time. So if you care about people, again, most of my employees have been with me forever. All my attorneys were law clerks of mine who've come up and now my partners and my attorneys. And so I think, trying to invest in people that care about people and building your firm that way. I could go hire a great trial lawyer. I mean, I've fired people before who made me a lot of money, but who didn't care about people, who didn't treat people right. I would rather have a good person who's valuable, who cares any day of the week, because that's what clients remember. Clients don't necessarily know if they got a great number or a bad number, but they know how they were treated in the process. And so my firm focuses from day one on, let's keep these clients happy. Let's treat them the way we would want to be treated.
Yeah, without question, and I think those words really resonate. Just not just in the legal profession, but I mean, you could say that just across any business, large or small, and I think the family atmosphere certainly isn't a cliche at your firm. It is definitely a family, and it's a family atmosphere, and I think that speaks volumes, and it's certainly it's something that should be copied. Arash, I think you would agree with that as well.
Yeah, if I was to hire an attorney, David is the exact type of attorney I'll be looking for. We come across a lot of attorneys who are just they don't treat us very well. So I mean, I can't imagine how they're treating everyone else in their lives. So it's some attorneys get a bad rep. The profession gets a bad rep. But for the most part, the majority of the attorneys we work with are fantastic. So,
and I think that's the key for you guys, which is what you do is so important. And I don't know that the general public understands that. And I just finishing up a new book. It's called "It's Never Been Easier to Pick the Wrong Attorney." I mean, it really isn't. It's so easy to pick the wrong attorney, and people like you really need to work with the right attorneys and make sure that they're visible and that people know who they are, because that's the only way. Because in this day and age, you can be a great attorney and nobody know it.
Exactly.
So you've got to use digital marketing. You've got, whether you want to or you don't, you've got to do it. And you've got to work with people like you. And if people like you work with good attorneys and make them visible, then great things can happen for the public.
Yeah, we're equally as passionate about what we do, because at the end of the day, I've gone through various levels of income in my life at my age, and I've never noticed any difference in happiness levels. But what I've noticed is anytime I can do something to change someone else's life for the better, whether it's a client or a friend or a family member, that's when you feel the real joy. And you feel like you're doing something in the world.
Yeah, I had a client call me 2 weeks ago, And he was an old client. I hadn't talked to him in a couple of years. I'm like, oh, first thought is, what happened? This guy's calling me. I haven't talked to him in a couple of years. And he says, David, I just wanted to let you know that my wife and I are sitting here talking, and we talk almost every day, certainly every week, about what a positive difference in our lives you made. And my wife said, you ought to call him. You need to call him and tell him that. Because every week we're sitting around talking every day or every week about, wow, what a difference he made in our lives. And so that day they called me. And I thought, you know what? That's pretty cool. That makes it easy to get up and come to work. And that makes it easy to work 6-7 days a week. When you get those kind of phone calls, just like what you're saying, when you make a difference, when you help a good law firm show up and get those good cases, instead of those cases going to somebody who doesn't give a crap about them, who's only looking for a quick fix, quick bucks, you made a difference. You made a difference in the clients. You made a difference in the attorney. You make a difference in people's lives as well.
No, without question. And when we look at Google reviews, for example, and I'm just using that as one because there's Yelp and there's 100 other places you can find reviews on attorneys or anything. But let's stick with that. I would say, and Arash, back me up on this. When we're doing these analysis, the number one negative review that just surfaces every time is lack of communication. And David, if you could speak to the importance of keeping your clients, maybe not every day because these cases could take years, but just having that open line of communication and how it really does help the process. Because when we see these 1-star reviews across any platform, Arash, what would you say? 90% of the time it's lack of communication?
Yeah, it is. And that's, I mean, you have to think where these people might be in their lives. Obviously, they're reaching out to an attorney. Something's isn't good, right? Whether it's a divorce attorney, personal injury attorney, whatever. There's a situation where they need somebody on their side and someone that cares. And when they're not picking up the phone, they're not returning phone calls or emails. I mean, that's just a horrible sign, So
we do a couple of things. I think you're exact. I think it's so important. I have what's called a client navigator. And so she does a survey. We do quarterly surveys to all of our clients, and we ask what kind of feedback, what can we do better? Who stands out in my company? Who's not been standing out in my company? And is anonymous. So they fill it out. They send it to, we use, it's an online survey. From the very beginning, I send out my book. I send out a package to let people know. We do a Zoom call with my whole team, not just me, my whole team with my clients, so they can see each other. And we do that periodically to keep them up to date. My file managers have to talk to my clients every so often, but I like to actually have a face-to-face with them. And we do it in the evening. We do it around the client's schedule. I talk to my clients in the very beginning, how do you like to communicate? Text, phone, Zoom, email. What's your preferred way? And so we have a lot of touch points. In the very beginning, clients can get buyer's remorse. I don't have that issue because we do such a good job in the front end, taking care of them and sending them information, providing them information. And I just showing that you care, that we're interested, we're invested in you, and we appreciate the chance to work for you. I think some lawyers look at it as, you should be grateful to have me as your lawyer. You are lucky to have me as your lawyer.
Right.
And I look at it as, I am so grateful to have you as my client. I appreciate the opportunity to work for you. Thank you. And that has to resonate through your whole company. And like intake calls, you get a call. After hours, they go to my wife. And my wife then says, believe me, David, you need to call this person. And I mean, one of the bigger cases I have right now is the trucking case, bad injuries over in Illinois. And the call came in on the weekend while I was having ice cream with my grandson and my wife. And my wife said, hey, Dave, this person just called. Looks like they have quite serious questions. And so I said to my grandson, which is good for him to learn, is these people need my help. I'm going to step outside and I'm going to help them. Now, I've done that with my kids who are now lawyers here, and now my grandkids, because that's what's important, is how am I going to how do I help these people? And if the partner is too daggone busy or too important to do that, then I think you got the wrong law firm. If they think that if they make you feel like you should be grateful to have them as your lawyer, you get the wrong lawyer. Because these cases are catastrophic. They take a long time. You're going to spend a lot of time with your lawyer. And in my book, I tell people, interview the lawyers. Don't just pick somebody off of however you do it. Just narrow it down. You guys need to get us on top of Google. So you guys get us, so we're visible. You make us visible, but then let people interview us and then decide who is the person that's the most compassionate, who's going to really be there with them throughout the whole process. And I think that's real important. But I think client, we return telephone calls. We get great Google reviews, and we do surveys. So it's extraordinarily important to us.
Well, that's amazing. I think your book after the current one should be one on how to run a law firm properly, because you seem to have the blueprint on how to do it right. So yeah, that's fantastic.
Well, yeah, no, and absolutely. And David, you've been incredibly generous with your time, and we're coming up on the end of ours. We would love to have you on again as a guest. I think we're just, quite frankly, I think we're just scratching the surface of, some knowledge and some advice that you can, provide not only other attorneys, but again, like we said, small business owners, in any type of field. But David, if you don't mind, if you could tell our audience a little bit more about your book, a little bit more about your podcast, where to find it, and again, we're incredibly grateful that you were able to guest with us today.
Well, I appreciate it. My book is Semi-Truck Wrecks Guide for Victims and Their Families, is available on Amazon, and so you can find it there. You can also go on my website. I'm pretty sure it's probably free on my website, but it's kind of hard. You have to actually look at it on the web's computer. I like a book in my hand, but or you can ask me. You can request one, and I'll send you one free. My podcast is After the Crash, and it's on all the places where you normally would find a podcast. Plus, it's on the video version, which I like better, is on YouTube. You can look us up at ckflaw.com or David W. Craig. You can find me on my website. And my email's on there, my phone numbers are on there. And I really appreciate the chance to be on here. I'd be happy to be on anytime. I believe that I don't really look at people as competitors. I'm getting ready to host a trucking seminar. The Indiana Trial Lawyers has asked me to host a trucking seminar, so I'm hosting one this summer. I invited some of my biggest competitors to be speakers, because I feel like, you just provide information to people. You do the right things. And then as a result, people invite you to do things. It takes care of itself. But I'd love to be on there, happy to be on there. I love it when guys like yourself are helping businesses to be seen, because I really want the good lawyers to be seen. And I see too many really good lawyers that just aren't visible. And then you can't do it anymore. You can't be the prominent lawyer in a small community and just expect people to know who you are. If you're listening out there, and you're a good attorney, hook up with Vertical 10 or somebody like them, because that will help you get in front of people and give you a shot at doing your job and helping them out. So thanks again.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, let's set up another guest appearance. Arash, this is, I think, each of these podcasts we do, we just find incredible guests, and it just gets better each time. And David, we're certainly appreciative of everything in your time. But yeah, I mean, this is fantastic. Arash.
Yeah. Excuse me. Thank you very much, David. This has been one of our best podcasts, honestly, because we really see how efficient and passionate and everything you are about what you're doing. So yeah, we definitely appreciate it, and we'd love to have you on again. I just want to say, if there's anyone that that might need some help, I also have a book myself. I will send it out to them for free, or even anyone on your staff that wants my free book. It's called The Law Firm Marketing Blueprint. It's all about marketing. I've been doing this for a very long time. I've been working for lawyers for almost 20 years now. So we've really enjoyed having you on, and good luck with everything, and also with your podcast after Crash.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And if you send me a copy of your book, I'll swap books with you. So you can reach out to Suzanne. I'd love to read your book.
Perfect. I'll reach out to her.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Thanks, David.
Bye-bye.
That's a wrap for this week's episode of the Next Level Law Podcast with your hosts, Arash Eskandari and Richard Perillo. We hope you discovered some game-changing takeaways to implement immediately for leveraging your law firm growth. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a review and rating on your preferred platform to help get the word out. You can also visit vertical10.com to access free law firm growth resources and a free copy of Arash's book, The Law Firm Marketing Blueprint. Finally, remember to join Arash and Richard next time as they continue revealing their best strategies for taking your firm to the next level. Until then, here's to your success.